So to what extent can the SA National Defence Force interfere in the affairs of the ANC? President Ramaphosa has reprimanded Defence Minister Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula and his doctor's salary for 3 months following her improper use of a military jet. Now, last week, Umkhonto weSizwe military veterans marched to the ANC's offices in Durban to demand the implementation of party resolutions, including the sacking of corrupt officials and the disbandment of the ANC's Provincial Executive Council. Now, former military intelligence chief Moamela Motau is urging serving soldiers to discuss how to intervene in ANC internal politics. Let's unpack the story now. Political analyst Dr. Ralph Mathekga joins us now via our video line. Dr. Mathekga, thank you so much for your time on the AM report. A worrying move this, is it, that soldiers are talking about intervening in governing party matters? What's your take on this?
Good morning to your viewers. This is quite unprecedented. I mean, when we are talking about members of the army who are still serving in the army, and also when you talk about someone who has been in charge of the military intelligence, you are talking about the heavyweights of power in the country. You are not talking about someone who just come from the NGO. We are not talking about a small pressure group. We are talking about the army, the most powerful institution within the country. So as we are a democracy, we are a civilian government. When you hear the army trying to mobilize itself as the army, but not just as ordinary citizens or just as concerned citizens, you get concerned as to what will the escalation result in. I mean, this is not to scare people off here, but we have had a situation in Zimbabwe where the army actually intervened with internal matter of a political party, and it is a toxic relationship. We should not get to that point. It is actually dangerous that we're looking at this now.
I see, Dr. Mathekga, you're not using the phrase, but it certainly comes to mind. Military coup?
Well, yes, you can see I'm deliberately trying to avoid that phrase, but the thing is that when the military get involved as an institution, it put unnecessary pressure on the political system. I understand that our political system is under pressure. I concede, I agree. We have written a lot about the extent of corruption and the level at which our institutions, some have become quite dysfunctional. But I do not think that the discussion or there should be a dialogue involving members of the military about this. It might not mean a coup or anything. I don't think it means that. I don't think we need to be worried about that. But the reality is that this is a very powerful institution within the country that has got such disproportionate power within society that when it gets involved into that, it places pressure on the politics in a way that we do not want.
Yeah. I mean, here we have a retired general, Moamela Motau. He's saying that there, in fact, is nothing preventing soldiers from weighing in on the political issues of a country. I mean, that is true.
There is no law that prohibits soldiers from weighing in. But in terms of practice, in terms of the democratic culture, it is not common that soldiers weigh in on that. I mean, we follow this thing across. Remember in Egypt when the civilian government was in trouble before the military took over after the revolution there. The military actually gave the civilian government an ultimatum and gave them a deadline. So the military does not really engage in a normal process. Again, as I said, it's not a political party, it's not an NGO, it's not an ordinary pressure group. It usually gives ultimatum. Hence, it should be concerned when the military is beginning to say that they want to talk with the ANC. It is quite unprecedented. I think it is a route that should be avoided by all means.
Yeah. So this is on the one hand a retired general that's calling on serving soldiers to get involved in this open discussion about what's going on within the governing party. But the SANDF's chief, Solly Shoke, issuing a statement there, its communications department coming out, issuing a statement saying he doesn't want soldiers to get involved in this way. Why is a retired general getting involved in this way? And does he wield any power? And I suppose these are questions we won't know the answers to until it's too late.
Exactly. I mean, this is not just a simple and easy retired general. This is a retired general who was influential and when his name comes out, that is General Motau, you hear that you're former of intelligence within the army. That's a powerful sect within the army, within the country, that is the intelligence. So the utterances by Chief of the Army, General Shoke, that the army should not be involved, I think it is the right one. But I do think that at the same time, it is not good for the two generals to be having this conversation through the media. I mean, I believe in democracy, I believe in openness, but I want to believe that there is some protocol that says that as the generals, one way or another, even a retired general must still have access to some of the intelligence report. Why can't they meet? Why can't these generals have a bilateral about this instead of airing this thing in the public? It can create a sense of anxiety. And I want to tell you this, that if it happens in another country, I want to give an example. This thing cannot happen in Uganda, with all due respect to Ugandans. If a retired military general said that in Uganda, he'll be arrested for that matter. So what I'm saying is that we are a democracy. It is good that we are having this engagement without fear on TV. However, I do think that the general should respect the decorum of the media and engage in bilateral. One way or another, there is still something that ties them together. Having served in the army, they cannot communicate in this manner. This is not deserving of ranking officers in our army to be communicating almost through Twitter. Unacceptable where I stand. Again, I'm not an expert on military. I observe regimes across the world and across the continent. I am concerned about this pattern of communication.
Yeah. I mean, Dr. Mathekga, what should be the response here from President Ramaphosa, given, I mean, there's a perception that this is a dangerous conversation taking place within the SANDF. You're saying that in Uganda, this retired general would have been arrested. We're in a democracy. What should we do?
Well, we should de-escalate this thing. The fact that we are a democracy means that the military cannot rear its head and threaten that it wants to engage. That on its own stifles conversation. The military is not an instrument for dialogue. So in a democracy, fine, we have held this up to this point, we have held the conversation up to this point, and from now on I believe that the generals, military officials, should retreat and have bilateral on this. The president is the chief of the army, as far as I know, and the president as well, I think, should be in conversation with his chief of the army. I mean, the last thing you want out of this is a creation, Michelle, of the idea of a mutiny within the army. You cannot have an environment where the talk almost point to a mutiny. The reason why we are not using the word mutiny is also because we don't want to cause anxiety, we don't want to cause fear or anything. But any escalation of this from now, it will be worrying. And the best de-escalation of this, it is for the generals to be able to have a bilateral. As army officials, they should find a way.
Yeah. Dr. Mathekga, before we let you go, your reaction now to what's been called in many quarters a slap on the wrist for Minister Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, docking of 3 months' pay for the ANC's use of an SANDF military jet. What's your response to the sanction?
Well, Michelle, not a good week, not a good month for the army. Again, we are bringing in within this context where you ask yourself about the level of discipline, the level of processes within that. I mean, I do understand that the president is yielding to the public pressure here, that the sanction, and again, the power alignment within the ANC. It's not just easy to remove the Minister of Defense. It's not an easy, it's quite a big step. It signals a huge shift, I think, when it comes to cabinet. So probably the president does not want to rock that boat, or he's in a position where politically he's unable to rock that boat. But what I'm concerned about is what happened when it comes to South Africa's military ferrying the ANC to Zimbabwe. Yes, the sanction may not be enough, as some want it to be a bit harsher. The minister is coming out as a serial offender. It's not the first offense of this kind. But most importantly, I'm concerned about the flow of power, how decisions are being made. And I think this issue, we are just at the beginning. There needs to be a proper investigation by the public protector on this.
Dr. Ralph Mateja, thank you so much for your time on the AM report. Of course, the call now is for that report that Minister Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula submitted to the President, explaining how it came about that the ANC took a ride on a military jet to Harare, that report now be made public.